I want you to picture two people, same city, same age, both turning 33 this year. Their names are Maya and Jordan, and on paper they earn almost the same money, somewhere around $75,000 a year. From the outside, you would assume their lives are basically identical. They are not. Not even close. Jordan looks like the one who is winning. There is a new SUV in the driveway with a 7-year loan attached to it. There is a house that stretched the budget to the absolute limit, the kind of monthly payment that feels fine in a good month and terrifying in a bad one. There are weekend trips, a closet that refreshes every season, a wedding that cost more than most people make in half a year. Every milestone you are told to hit by 33, Jordan has hit. The photos look incredible. Maya looks like the one who is falling behind. She still rents the same one-bedroom she has lived in for 4 years. She drives a paid-off car with 110,000 miles on it. She skipped the destination wedding and got married in a backyard. If you scrolled past her life online, you would feel a little sorry for her. You might quietly think she is not quite keeping up. Here is the part nobody posts. Jordan has about $4,000 in savings and $11,000 in credit card debt. Maya has roughly $90,000 invested and growing, and she adds to it automatically every single month without thinking about it. Same income, same decade. One of them is building a future, the other is renting the appearance of one. This is not a story about two friends. It is a story about the single most misunderstood decade of your financial life. Because your 30s are the most expensive decade you will ever live. And almost nobody tells you why. Most people think their 30s are expensive because life simply costs more now. The weddings, the kids, the houses, the bigger bills. That is real. But it is not the dangerous part. The dangerous part is invisible, and by the time you can see it clearly, you are usually in your 50s, wondering where the time went. So let me show you exactly what makes this decade so costly, and how to make it the decade that sets you free instead of the one that quietly sets you back. Let me start with a concept that will reframe how you think about money in your 30s for the rest of your life. In your 30s, every dollar wears two price tags. There is the price you pay today, the number on the receipt. And there is the price you will never see, which is what that dollar would have become if you had let it grow. That second price tag is the one that matters. And in your 30s, it is larger than in any other decade of your life. Here is why. Compound growth is just money making money, and then that new money making money too. The longer it runs, the more violent the effect becomes near the end. A dollar you invest at 33 has roughly 30 years to multiply before a normal retirement age. A dollar you invest at 53 has about 10. Those are not slightly different outcomes. They are different universes. Let me put real numbers on it. Imagine you invest $500 a month starting at 30, and you earn a 7% average annual return, which sits comfortably in the range the stock market has historically delivered over long stretches once you account for inflation. By 60, that habit grows to roughly $600,000. Now imagine you wait. You start the exact same $500 a month, but at 40 instead of 30. Same discipline, same return, just 10 years later. You end up with around $260,000. Read that again. The only difference was the 10 years of your 30s, and that difference was worth about $340,000. You did not spend $340,000. You simply did not start. That is the hidden price tag of this decade. The decisions feel small, the consequences are enormous. So when I say your 30s are expensive, I do not just mean your spending goes up, although it does. I mean that every dollar you misuse in this decade carries the heaviest opportunity cost of your entire life, because it has the most time to have grown. Spend $1,000 at 60, and you spent $1,000. Spend $1,000 at 30, and, in the language of your future, you spent closer to $7,000. Same receipt, wildly different truth. And here is what makes this decade uniquely dangerous. Every expensive life event seems to arrive at once. The wedding, the first house, the first child, the career that finally pays real money and tempts you to finally live a little. In your 20s, you usually did not have enough income for these pressures to do much damage. In your 40s and 50s, you have, hopefully, built some defenses. But your 30s are the narrow window where the spending pressure peaks at the exact same moment your money has the most growing left to do. That overlap is the trap. It is why two people with identical incomes can walk out of this decade looking like they came from different planets. Now let me show you the specific traps where this decade quietly drains people, and exactly how to flip each one in your favor. Rule 1. Pay yourself the raise before anyone else gets to spend it. Most people think the goal of earning more is to live a little better. That feels obvious, even responsible. But here is what actually happens to the typical person in their 30s. The income climbs, and the lifestyle climbs right alongside it, almost perfectly matched, so that no matter how much more you make, you somehow have the same amount left over at the end of the month. Researchers call this lifestyle inflation, and studies consistently show it is the single biggest reason high earners still feel broke. The fix is brutally simple, and almost nobody does it. When your income goes up, you move a chunk of that raise straight into savings or investing before it ever touches your checking account in a way you can feel. Get a $400 a month raise, send $200 of it to your future automatically, and let yourself enjoy the other $200 guilt-free. You still feel richer. You just are richer too. Watch what that one habit does over time. That extra $300 a month, invested at 7% across 30 years, grows to roughly $360,000. That is not from a windfall or a lucky bet. That is from refusing to let one raise quietly disappear into a slightly nicer life you will not even remember choosing. The people who win this decade are not the ones who earn the most. They are the ones who let their savings rate rise faster than their lifestyle. And that gap, the space between what you make and what you spend, is the entire game. Hold that thought, because the next trap is the one that eats that gap alive. Rule 2. Treat consumer debt like a fire, not like furniture. Most people in their 30s carry a balance and treat it as a normal, permanent part of adult life, like a couch that is just always there. But high-interest debt is not furniture. It is compound growth pointed directly at you, working for the bank instead of for you, and it works just as relentlessly in reverse. Think about what a credit card actually is. The average rate now sits north of 20%. That means a $4,000 balance you only make minimum payments on can take well over a decade to clear and can roughly double in what you ultimately pay. You are not buying things anymore at that point. You are renting them at a punishing price, long after the joy is gone. That dinner you charged 18 months ago is still costing you, and you cannot even remember what you ordered. Here is the reframe that changes behavior. Paying off a card charging 22% is mathematically the same as earning a guaranteed 22% return on your money, tax-free, with zero risk. There is no investment on earth that reliably offers that. So before you optimize anything else, you put out the fire. You attack the highest rate balance with everything you have while paying minimums on the rest, and once it is gone, you roll that entire payment onto the next one. This is the one place where being aggressive is not gambling. It is the safest high return you will ever get. Knock the fire down, and suddenly you have margin again. And margin is what the next rule is built on. Rule 3. Buy the house you can ignore, not the house you can barely afford. Most people in their 30s stretch for the biggest home the bank will approve, because the bank approved it, so it must be fine. But the amount a lender is willing to give you is not the amount you can comfortably live with. Those are two completely different numbers, and the gap between them is where this decade gets dangerous. Here is what the listing price never tells you. A home does not cost its mortgage. It costs the mortgage plus property taxes, plus insurance, plus maintenance that the industry rule of thumb estimates at roughly 1 to 2% of the home's value every single year. On a $400,000 house, that maintenance alone can run $4,000 to $8,000 a year, every year forever. Buy more house than you need, and you do not just pay a bigger mortgage, you pay bigger everything, in every category, for as long as you own it. And here is the part that stings. Every extra dollar locked into a too large house is a dollar that cannot compound for you anywhere else. Stretch an extra $500 a month to afford the upgraded house, and across the length of a 30-year mortgage that is the same $500 a month that could have grown into roughly $600,000 invested. The smarter move in your 30s is almost always to buy comfortably under your limit, so the house is something you barely notice in your budget rather than something that quietly owns you. A home should be a place you live, not a financial hostage situation you signed up for. And speaking of things people sign up for without reading the real cost, let me talk about kids. Rule 4. Decide what raising a child actually costs you, before the marketing does. Most people in their 30s hear that a child costs hundreds of thousands of dollars and either panic or stop listening. The often cited figure, somewhere around $300,000 to raise one child to 18, is real as an average. But an average hides a secret. And the secret is that a huge portion of that number is choices, not requirements. A baby does not actually require a $2,000 stroller, a nursery renovation, or brand new everything from a store that exists to make you feel guilty. Children need stability, attention, food, safety, and love. And almost none of that scales with how much you spend. The families who handle this decade well are not the ones who spend the least on their kids out of fear. They are the ones who refuse to let an industry define what good parenting costs. Here is the long-term math that nobody frames this way. If you keep even $300 a month out of the discretionary, marketed-to-you baby spending and redirect it toward an investment account in your child's name, at 7% over 18 years, that becomes well over $120,000. That is a paid-off college, or a down payment, or simply a generational head start. Same love, same childhood, radically different financial outcome. The expense of children is real, but a shocking amount of it is optional in disguise. Now, here is a cost that is the opposite of optional, and almost everyone skips it anyway. Rule 5. Pay for the boring protection before you buy the exciting upgrade. Most people in their 30s insure their phone and forget to insure their income. It sounds backwards because it is backwards, and it is one of the most expensive blind spots of the entire decade. Your 30s are when other people start depending on you, and also when one bad event can erase a decade of progress overnight. There are two unglamorous things almost everyone in this decade needs and avoids thinking about. The first is term life insurance, which is shockingly cheap when you are young and healthy, often just $20 to $40 a month for a substantial policy, and which protects the people who rely on your paycheck if you are gone. The second is disability insurance, which protects your ability to earn, because studies consistently show you are far more likely to be unable to work for a stretch than to die young, and your income is the engine the entire plan runs on. Here is why this matters more than any investment trick. You can do everything else right, max out the accounts, avoid the debt, buy the modest house, and a single uninsured catastrophe in your 30s can wipe all of it out and put you in a hole you spend the rest of your life climbing out of. Protection is not the part of the plan that makes you rich. It is the part that keeps you from going to zero, and going to zero in this decade is the most expensive event of all. I am not done yet, because the next trap is the one that quietly works against everyone, even people who do all of the above. Rule 6. Stop competing with people who are also broke. Most people in their 30s measure their progress against the people around them, and this is a trap because the people around you are usually performing wealth, not holding it. Remember Jordan from the start of this video, the SUV, the house, the trips. That is what the competition actually looks like up close. Debt wearing a nice outfit. Researchers studying spending have found that proximity to higher spending reliably pulls your own spending up, even when your income does not move. You see a coworker's new car, a friend's renovation, a vacation on your feed, and a number quietly resets in your head about what is normal. The cost is not just the thing you buy to keep up, it is the permanent ratchet upward in what you believe you need, which then drains every future dollar too. The escape is to change who you are comparing yourself to. Not your neighbor, who may be one missed paycheck from collapse, but your own self from a year ago. Did your net worth go up? Did your debt go down? Did your savings rate climb? Those are the only scoreboards that mean anything, and they are private. The wealthiest people I have studied are almost boringly indifferent to what their peers are buying, and that indifference is worth a fortune. It is the thing that lets every other rule actually work. Try this the next time you feel the pull. Before you buy something to match someone else, ask one question. Would I still want this if no one would ever know I owned it? A shocking amount of spending in your 30s fails that test instantly because it was never about the thing, it was about the signal. And signals are the most expensive things you can buy because they have to be rebought constantly, forever, to keep working. Real wealth is silent. It does not need an audience. Which brings me to the rule most people get exactly backwards. Rule 7. Make your investing automatic and your meddling impossible. Most people in their 30s think building wealth requires being smart, watching the market, picking the right moment, finding the next big thing. It does not. It requires being consistent and being unavailable to your own worst impulses. The market is not won by the clever. It is won by the people who keep buying through every scary headline and never sell in a panic. Here is the mechanism that does the heavy lifting. You set up an automatic transfer into a low-cost, broadly diversified index fund. The kind that simply owns a tiny slice of hundreds or thousands of companies every single payday, and then you make it genuinely hard to interrupt. The automation removes the daily decision, which is exactly where people sabotage themselves. Studies consistently show that the average investor underperforms the very funds they own. And the reason is behavior, not knowledge. They buy when they feel good and sell when they feel scared, which is the precise opposite of the plan. And do not skip the free money on the way. If your job offers a retirement match, that is your employer handing you an instant return of 50 or 100% on the portion they match, before the market does anything at all. Failing to capture a full match in your 30s is one of the quietest, most expensive mistakes available to you because you are turning down a guaranteed raise. Set it once, make it automatic, and let 30 years of boring consistency do what no clever trade ever will. Nope, not over yet, because there is one more rule, and it is the one that makes every other rule survivable. Rule 8. Put your money in the right buckets before the tax system takes its cut. Most people in their 30s invest inside whatever account is easiest and never think about the wrapper around it. But the account you invest in can matter almost as much as what you invest in, because your 30s are usually when your income climbs into higher tax territory. And that means the tax system is taking a bigger bite of every dollar than it ever did in your 20s. Ignore this and you can do everything else right and still hand over a fortune you never had to. Here is the simple version, stripped of jargon. There are accounts that let your money grow without being taxed along the way, and using them is one of the closest things to free money that exists. A traditional retirement account lets you invest before tax is taken out, lowering your bill today. A Roth account uses money you have already paid tax on, but then grows completely tax-free, so you never owe a cent on decades of gains. And a health savings account, if you qualify for one, is the rare unicorn that can go in tax-free, grow tax-free, and come out tax-free for medical costs. These are not loopholes. They are doors the system left open on purpose, and most people walk right past them. Here is why this matters so much in this specific decade. Imagine two people who both grow an investment into $500,000 of gains over their lifetime. The one who used tax-advantaged accounts keeps it. The one who invested in a plain taxable account can owe tens of thousands of dollars in taxes on those same gains. Money that simply evaporates for no reason other than the wrapper they chose. Same investment, same return, wildly different ending, decided by a choice that took 5 minutes to make. So before you chase a higher return, make sure you are not leaking money out the side. Fill the tax advantage buckets first. Capture every break the system actually offers you, and let the wrapper do part of the work. Now, here is the rule that makes every single one of these survivable. Rule 9. Keep a wall of cash between you and disaster. Most people in their 30s invest everything they can and keep almost nothing in cash because cash feels lazy and unproductive. But a thin cash cushion is how good plans die. The moment an emergency hits, a job loss, a medical bill, a car that finally quits, the person with no buffer is forced to do the most expensive things imaginable. They sell investments at the worst possible time, or they reach for a credit card and reignite the very fire we already talked about. The industry rule of thumb suggests holding 3 to 6 months of essential expenses in a high-yield savings account, somewhere safe and instantly available, earning a bit of interest while it waits. For most people in their 30s, that is somewhere between $10,000 and $25,000 sitting still on purpose. It will not grow like your investments, and that is not its job. Its job is to make sure that when life happens, and in your 30s it will, you never have to undo years of progress to survive a single bad month. Think of it as the thing that lets you keep your discipline when everyone around you loses theirs. The investor who has cash can ride out a market crash without selling because they are not forced to. The one who does not have cash becomes a forced seller at the bottom, locking in losses they never had to take. Your emergency fund is not an investment. It is the insurance policy on your patience, and patience is the rarest, most valuable asset you own in this decade. So now you know the traps. Let me show you exactly how to start escaping them, beginning today. This week, do one thing only, because momentum matters more than perfection. Pull up every account you have and write down 2 numbers on a single piece of paper. Everything you own and everything you owe. Most people in their 30s have never once seen these 2 numbers side by side, and the clarity alone is enough to change how you spend for months. You cannot fix what you refuse to look at, so look at it this week even if it scares you, especially if it scares you. This month, automate 1 transfer and attack 1 debt. Set up an automatic deposit into an investment account. even if it is only $50 or $100 to start, because the habit matters more than the amount right now. At the same time, pick your single highest interest debt and throw every extra dollar you can at it while paying minimums on the rest. One automatic engine building your future, one focused fire being put out behind you. That is the whole machine in miniature, and you can build it this month. This quarter, capture every dollar of free money and build your buffer. Log into your retirement plan at work and make sure you are contributing at least enough to get the full employer match, because that is a guaranteed return you are currently leaving on the table if you are not. While you are there, make sure your money is actually invested rather than sitting in cash, which is a mistake more common than you would believe, where people faithfully contribute for years and never realize the money was never put to work. Then begin steadily filling your emergency fund until you have at least 1 month of expenses parked safely on the way to 3. By the end of 3 months, you will have a budget you have actually seen, money flowing automatically toward your future, a debt shrinking on schedule, free money captured, the right accounts doing the heavy lifting, and a cushion forming underneath you. That is not a fantasy. That is just 9 rules turned into a few specific moves, and none of them require you to be an expert. They only require you to start. And before we close, one honest note that matters. This video is for educational purposes, not financial advice. Speak with a qualified professional for decisions about your specific situation. The math here is meant to show you the shape of the choices, not to replace a plan built around your real numbers and your real life. So let me take you back to Maya and Jordan, both 33, both earning about the same. By the time they reach 60, their lives will look almost unrecognizable from each other, and it will have almost nothing to do with luck. Jordan spent the 30s buying the appearance of a rival, and every one of those dollars carried that hidden second price tag, the fortune it could have become. Maya spent the 30s quietly building, letting modest decisions compound in the background, looking a little behind the whole time, and finishing decades ahead. This is the part that should stay with you. There is a virtuous cycle and a destructive one, and your 30s decide which one you are standing inside. In the virtuous cycle, your savings rate rises faster than your lifestyle, your money compounds, your buffer protects your patience, and freedom arrives early and quietly. In the destructive cycle, your lifestyle outruns your income, debt compounds against you, every emergency forces a step backward, and the appearance of wealth slowly replaces the real thing until one day the gap is too large to close. And here is the quiet mercy in all of this. You do not have to be perfect, and you do not have to have started at 22. If you are 33 right now and you have done none of this, you have not missed your window. You are standing inside it. The most expensive decade is also the most powerful one, and the power does not run out the moment you turn 34. Maya did not do anything extraordinary. She just started, kept it boring, and let time do the part that no human can do on their own. Your 30s are the most expensive decade you will ever live, but expensive does not have to mean lost. It can mean leveraged. It is the decade where the smallest decisions echo the loudest, where a few $100s a month becomes hundreds of thousands, where boring habits quietly outperform brilliant ones. The choice is simply whether you want to spend this decade buying a life that looks impressive to strangers, or building one that actually belongs to you. Maya is not richer than Jordan because she earned more. She is richer because she understood, 10 years earlier than most people ever do, that in your 30s you are not just spending money, you are spending time, and time is the one thing you can never earn back.